So for this pattern, you need a pencil, measurement tape, a pattern paper, a pattern master, scissors, tape, and a marker. So I like to write my measurements by the side of the paper to make it easy for me to follow. So this is me measuring my shoulder. If you can't see, this is 7 inches because the shoulder is 14, so I divided by 2. After marking it at 3 points, I connect like so. So I'm using marker to connect so that you can see it clearly, but when you're drafting this, you can just use pencil. So I measure my actual neckline, which the width is 2.5, and I'm using my depth as 3 inches. Then I connect it using the curved side of my ruler. This is what we call the actual neckline. Next, we'll find the slope of the shoulder. I prefer to use 1 inch, and then you connect it to the neckline. Next, we are going to measure our armhole depth, and I prefer to use 7 for myself, so I'm using 8 on the other side to consider the 1 inch slope that we left on the shoulder part. So connecting it together, this gives us our armhole line, so you can just indicate it so that you get used to it. That's your armhole line. Next, I'm measuring for my bust, my waistline, which is 16 inches. Then I measure my blouse length as well. Since this is a basic bodice, I don't need to measure my shoulder to bust. So I connect them like so. I always like to measure in 2 places to give me a straight line when connecting. Then on my armhole line, I'll find the midpoint, which is 3.5. Then I'll go in by 1/2 inch to create the shoulder depth. I connect from top with a straight line, and then I continue downwards with a curve. So this is our armhole depth. So next we measure for our waist, our hips, and our bust. This is me marking the hip line, just so that to give us direction on where to mark out the hip measurement. So here I mark for my bust. So my bust divided by 4, waist divided by 4, then I added room for that allowance. Then I also did hip divided by 4, and I indicated it here. Then I'll connect it together. So that's bust to waist, and then waist to hip. Next thing, I'll come back to my blouse length line to create a curve so that the base of the bodice is not straight. So you can go up by 1.5 inch, 2 inch, or 3 inch depending on the amount of curve you need for your bodice. Then this is me shading out the unwanted area so that we don't make a mistake of cutting any wrong position. Next, here I use my bust span, that's the nipple to nipple, to mark the central position where the dart will be. Then I connect it with a straight line first. Then I go ahead to mark 1/2 inch to the left and 1/2 inch to the right, just so that I will know where I'm connecting my darts to. depends on the amount of allowance you use. If you left half inch, then you use it. If you left 1.5, then you're using 0.75 on both sides. So I'm just cross-checking my measurement to see if our waist still gives us 7 after taking out the darts, and it does, so we are good to go. So now we shade out all the other portions that are not needed, so that we don't make a mistake when cutting. This is the professional thing to do. Now I'll try to indicate my allowances. This will be cut on fold, so I like to write fold, then add all the allowances, so that when cutting, you know exactly how many inch allowances to leave at each side. So this is our front bodice, and as simple as it is, we are done here. So whatever neckline you desire to use, you can now indicate your preferred neckline and then draft it. But if you still like the actual neckline and want to leave it like that, you can do that. Here you get to decide whatever neck you want, and then you just mark it and cut. So for our back pattern, we start by measuring the shoulder also, which we are maintaining the same 7 we used for the front pattern, and we connect it. Next, we measure the neckline. We are using the same neck width, which is 2.5, but for our back neck depth, we'll be using 1. That's the standard neck depth for back. Next, we'll mark our shoulder slope, which is 1 inch, same as what we used for the front bodice, and we connect it. Let me just go over it with a marker so that you can see it more clearly. Next, we measure our armhole depth, which is 7 inches. On this side, we'll be measuring 8, giving room for the 1 inch we left up there to get our straight line. Connect our armhole line like this. Then next, we measure our shoulder to waist, which is 16 inches, and our shoulder to blouse length, which we used 23 inches. Then our hip line ends at the end of the paper. So connect the lines like so. So next, we're going to take our armhole depth, find the midpoint again of the back, which is 3.5. We go in by ½ inches. We connect from the armhole with a straight line, then connect to the bust line with a curve, like this. Then we take our waistline dart, that's our back dart. I like to use 1 inches. It gives a good fitting for the back. It avoids bulging of your zip and so on. We shade it out. Then now we can go ahead to shape the garment. I'm measuring so bust and then waistline at 7 inches. Then we add room for darts, which I'm adding only 1 inches here. That's making it 8. And then on our hip line, we measure our hip, divide by 4 and mark it. We connect the bust to the waist, and then we connect the waist to the hips. We go above to do the curve on the base of our dress like so. I used 1.5 inch here, and then we connect it into the bodice. Then we shade out the waist portion. Next, we find our dart line, which is going to be the midpoint of the back, which is 4 inches. So we are going to use 4 inches to get the center line for our dart and connect it like so. Next, we'll take 1/2 inch to the left and 1/2 inch to the right to create our dart legs. So now we indicate our allowances, and we make sure we are using the same allowances as what we indicated in the front. So this is going to be our zip line allowance, which is usually 2 inches or more, depends on what you're making. Then we leave 1/2 inch on every other place. Now remember, we had a desired neckline in front, so we're going to make sure that the width of the neckline in front is similar to that of the back. So this is me extending the neck width for the back, but I'm maintaining the high neck behind. Now we'll go ahead and cut our pattern. So this is basically it. Drafting a basic bodice is really very simple. Please make sure you try this. Practice makes perfect. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to our channel to get more of content like this. Thank you.